Hi everyone, welcome back again. In this tutorial, I am going to go through phase 2 of our search strategies because in my previous video, I went through phase 1 of search strategy, of which it typically deals with what search strategy is, how to, if you're given a research work, how to identify search terms and how you can use appropriate search terms like synonyms and related terms, how you can select your key points. And therefore in phase 2 we are going to look about Boolean operators and wildcards and truncations. But before we go into that, let us first look at the outline for phase 2 of search strategy, and that is what we shall be looking at. The first one highlights of what we talked in our previous video. We shall be looking at now the Boolean operators, the amazing ones, and the truncation and wildcards. I shall be looking at examples on phase 1 and phase 2, the highlights to phase 3, which will be my next video after this. Therefore, briefly, let us look at the highlights to phase 1. And in these highlights to phase 1, in my previous video, I talked about how you can identify key terms. For example, when you're given a research question about the social and economic impacts of gender-based violence, how can you identify those key terms such that you will not only copy and paste the question the way it is, but you'll be using your key terms to do your appropriate research. Therefore, we can be able to identify those key terms by breaking down the questions. After breaking down the questions, you get the main points and concepts that the question is requiring. And therefore, how can we select these search terms? We can select this search term by using appropriate keywords. And these appropriate keywords we shall be using as well as phrases and synonyms. Therefore, if we are using phrases and synonyms, what are we going to really do about? In phrases and synonyms, we are going to go through different ways how you can generate the question, you can treat the question. So therefore, let us look at this identification of key terms. So this was our previous question that we were discussing in phase 1. So the question is, what are the social and economic impacts of gender-based violence in rural areas? Quickly, as I said in my previous video, that when you encounter such a question, you can be able to look at the key points, and that is gender-based violence as one of the key points. The other one is social impacts, and the other one is economic impacts. Therefore, and the question is required in rural communities. Therefore, rural communities also stands out to be your next key point. Therefore, let us briefly now look at what we are mainly going to focus in, and that is Boolean operators. What these Boolean operators are. Therefore, Boolean operators, these are operators like basically and or not. Therefore, for a successful and efficient and more enriched research, you need to start using these Boolean operators, the and, the or the not, to combine or this basically is meant to combine your research work or exclude some terms or refine or broaden your search, because the and or not, they stand for different purposes in your research. Therefore, you'll be able now to use them more appropriately when you need your research to be combined, when you need to exclude other terms, or else when you need to refine your search. You'll be able to use these Boolean operators. Therefore, as well when you want to broaden your search. Therefore, let us basically look at what these terms mean, and we're going to go into the explanation of this Boolean operators one by one. And quickly, let us start with the and. So if you're using a Boolean operator like the and, you are going to narrow your search in such a way that this narrows the search by including all specific terms. It is more directed to all the specific terms that you are looking for. It is not broad enough, but it's just narrow the search to what you are looking for, if in case you don't want to get irrelevant information about the topic of your research. And therefore, the O as the next. For the O, it basically broadens the search to include any specific term. It doesn't narrows or it doesn't limit your search, but it broadens your search in such a way that it includes relevant information about your topic of research, even if sometimes you did include in your key points or your research question. But if you use the Boolean operator like or, it broadens the search to include all the specific terms. Now, for the case of the node, it exclude terms to avoid answers. If you want to be one way and specific to what you are looking for, you don't want some irrelevant information that it should be in the research work. Therefore, you need to use all, and all this always exclude those terms that are irrelevant. Therefore, such that you get relevant results, but you doesn't get irrelevant results. And this will take us to the next item in the list. And we still under these Boolean operators, we are going to go in the examples, bearing in mind that our research question still stands, our research topic still stands about the gender-based the gender-based violence. Therefore, if you're using, like for example, I can use gender-based violence and economic impacts, and therefore this retrieves results for both concepts. It retrieves results, or it gives results for gender-based violence, and it gives results for economic aspects. Therefore, and if I am to use all, for example here, if I am to use gender-based violence or domestic violence, then what does it bring? If I am to use all retrieves results with either terms. Therefore, as I said before, that all broadens the search. It brings things even that you didn't research about, but they are more related to your search. Therefore, it retrieves results about gender-based violence. It as well as retrieves results about domestic violence. So that is how good that Boolean operator is. Therefore, let us look into the third one, and that is node. If I say that gender-based violence, I am looking for gender-based violence and not urban communities, because the question is more directed to rural communities. So I can put it as well as gender-based violence, not urban communities. Therefore, as I said before, that node, it excludes results. Okay, it excludes other terms to avoid irrelevant results. Therefore, node, if you use node, therefore it retrieves results about gender-based violence, but it excludes results focused on urban settings. It excludes results focused on urban settings, and definitely it retrieves results focused on rural settings. And therefore, basically, that is how important the Boolean operators are, the and the node. This will take us to our next, and that is the truncation wildcards. For truncation, these are symbols like the star, yeah, this star, which is the asterisk sign, or the question mark. This is a Boolean node. This is a Boolean operator and wildcards in such a way that it includes word variations and alternative settings. If you put this in your research, they are basically used to include word variations or alternative settings, as you can see here, word variations or alternative settings. And this will take us to the continuation of wildcards and truncations. So let us look at the wildcard. What wildcard is? Wildcards, this retrieves work with different endings. While truncations, that is truncation, retrieves words with different endings, while wildcards capture spelling variations. For wildcards, if for real, it captures spelling variation. Let us briefly look at some basic examples of these words. And in these examples of these words, let us look at a truncation like violence, and I put this asterisk sign. Therefore, if I put this asterisk sign, or I just type violence, but I put on this asterisk sign, this is therefore it retrieves results like violence, violences, and violent. Therefore, that is why before we say that truncation retrieves words with different endings. Therefore, as you can see, our ending here is violence, and here it retrieves results like violence, yes, then violences and violin. So that is how important this transaction is. And the other one is now the wildcard. If I put like women, I don't put women, but I put like I remove the E from women and I put question mark. If I put question mark, this retrieves both results. As I said it earlier on, that truncation, wildcards, it capture spelling variations. Therefore, if I put a question mark in women here, I replace the E with the question mark. Therefore, it will retrieve both women, woman and women. So in your search, you can as well use such terms. And therefore, thanks for watching. This is in fact a part of the information literacy course that I have been going through. Therefore, if you haven't watched some of my videos about information literacy, you can go and watch them. You can as well subscribe to my channel. Thank you.